You're not lying. Your mind is Freud on defense mechanisms. Let me start with a quiet question. Have you ever forgotten something too conveniently? Snapped at someone and then said, "I didn't mean it," but deep down, knew you did? Laughed at a joke that made you uncomfortable? Convinced yourself you were fine when you weren't? That, my friend, may not have been you lying. That may have been your mind defending itself against the truth. Sigmund Freud believed that the mind is not a fortress of clarity and control. It is a fragile balancing act. And when the forces inside us, desire, fear, shame, guilt, become too strong, the mind doesn't break. It bends, it twists, it hides. In this episode, we're going to explore Freud's theory of defense mechanisms, the elegant unconscious strategies our ego uses to protect us from anxiety, internal conflict, and overwhelming truth. You'll see yourself in these defenses. We all use them every day. Some make us functional. Others destroy relationships, block growth, and cause harm. But Freud wasn't here to condemn. He was here to reveal, to make the invisible visible, to say, you are not as rational as you think, but that's okay. Now, let's look closer. Freud's model of the mind, id, ego, superego, set the stage for understanding why defense mechanisms are necessary. The id demands pleasure. The superego imposes guilt. The ego stands in the middle, overwhelmed. And when this pressure becomes too much, the ego must protect itself, not by fixing the problem, but by altering perception. That's what a defense mechanism is. An unconscious process that reduces anxiety by distorting reality. This is not deception in the ordinary sense. It's self-deception, and it's often automatic. The ego's job is not truth at any cost, it's survival. It filters, censors, hides, reframes, so that we can continue functioning. Think of defenses as psychic armor. Not to win a war, but to make sure the soldier can keep standing. But armor can rust. It can weigh you down. What protects you today may imprison you tomorrow. That's the paradox. Freud saw defense mechanisms as both adaptive and problematic. They keep us sane, but they also keep us stuck. And to grow, we must first see the armor for what it is. Let's walk through the most influential and common defense mechanisms. 1. Repression. The cornerstone of all defenses. This is the act of pushing a thought, memory, or desire out of conscious awareness. You don't forget a trauma. You repress it. The content is still there, just buried. Example: a person abused in childhood remembers nothing of it, yet suffers inexplicable anxiety around intimacy. Repression doesn't delete. It displaces. The material returns in dreams, slips, symptoms. 2. Denial. This is a flat-out refusal to accept reality. A person receives a diagnosis and continues making future plans as though nothing's changed. Or someone refuses to see signs of addiction in a loved one. Denial is simple but powerful. It buys time. It numbs pain. But it also delays healing. 3. Projection. This is when you attribute your own unacceptable thoughts or feelings to someone else. You feel hostility, but accuse others of being hostile. You struggle with envy, but call others jealous. It's a form of emotional outsourcing. The psyche says, "I don't own this, you do." Projection fuels conflict, judgment, paranoia. But it also reveals what we most fear in ourselves. Fourth, displacement. This redirects emotion from a threatening target to a safer one. You're angry at your boss, but shout at your partner. You fear your father, but lash out at your sibling. It's emotion with bad aim. Displacement keeps relationships functional on the surface, while misdirecting the psychic storm beneath. 5. Rationalization. This is the ego's inner lawyer. It explains away behavior with logic that sounds reasonable, but isn't the real reason. You fail a test and say the questions were unfair. You cheat and claim your partner wasn't meeting your needs. Rationalization masks guilt with cleverness. It comforts the conscience, but dodges the truth. 6th reaction formation. This transforms an unacceptable impulse into its opposite. You feel attraction, but act cold. You feel hate, but become overly kind. Think of the politician crusading against immorality, secretly living a double life. Reaction formation is defense by reversal. It's the mind shouting no, so loudly it forgets the yes it fears. 7th, regression. This involves retreating to an earlier stage of development when overwhelmed. A stressed adult throws a tantrum. A child returns to bedwetting after trauma. Regression is the psyche curling into a fetal position. It seeks safety in simplicity. 8. Sublimation. Perhaps the most admired defense. This transforms unacceptable impulses into creative, productive outlets. Aggression becomes sport. Sexual desire becomes art. Sadness becomes poetry. Sublimation is civilization's secret fuel. Freud saw it as proof that even the darkest drives can be elevated. It was Anna Freud, Sigmund's daughter, who gave us the most structured view of defense mechanisms in her 1936 book, The Ego and the Mechanisms of Defense. Anna Freud wasn't just preserving her father's legacy, she was refining it. She categorized defenses based on maturity levels, patterns of use, and developmental stages. She emphasized that children use more primitive defenses like denial and projection, while adults tend to rely on more complex strategies like rationalization and sublimation. Her work laid the groundwork for modern ego psychology. And while her father focused on neurosis and repression, Anna Freud was deeply interested in how defenses shaped normal personality development. She helped reframe defense mechanisms not just as signs of pathology, but as tools of adaptation. Still unconscious, still imperfect, but necessary. Let's now bring these ideas down from theory into the mess of everyday life. Imagine a man who constantly complains that others are out to get him. In reality, he carries deep distrust and unresolved anger. He's using projection. Or consider a woman who laughs excessively at tragic news. She's masking pain with humor, perhaps a mix of denial and reaction formation. Or a high-achieving student who, after failing an exam, blames the system, the professor, the room temperature, anything but their own unpreparedness. That's rationalization. These aren't exotic examples, they're ordinary. And that's what makes defense mechanisms so fascinating. They're everywhere. They explain why we stay in toxic relationships, why we sabotage opportunities, why we repeat old patterns, why we don't know ourselves fully. But they also explain resilience. A child growing up in trauma may use denial to survive. A survivor of assault may use repression as a psychic tourniquet. An angry teenager who takes up boxing is practicing sublimation. Defenses are not weaknesses. They're ingenious adaptations. But they carry a price: disconnection from reality, from others, and from the self. Do defenses still matter in therapy today? Absolutely. While classical psychoanalysis emphasized uncovering repressed content, modern psychodynamic therapy often focuses on increasing awareness of defenses. The therapist is not trying to remove defenses. That would be like stripping armor in battle. The goal is to recognize them and replace maladaptive defenses with healthier ones. In CBT, distortions like all-or-nothing thinking or catastrophizing often mirror classical defenses like splitting or projection. In internal family systems therapy, defenses are seen as protectors, parts of the self acting out of fear. Even in neuroscience, we see echoes. Emotional regulation, prefrontal inhibition, threat processing. These are biological siblings of Freud's psychological concepts. So while the language has evolved, the core idea remains. We don't see things as they are. We see them as we need to. Therapy, then, becomes a process of learning to see more clearly. To ask, what am I defending against? And is it still serving me? So, what now? Understanding defense mechanisms is not about self-judgment. It's about self-honesty. You are not weak because you repress, deny, or rationalize. You're human. The mind is a battlefield, and defense is a sign that something is worth protecting. But defense, over time, becomes a prison. And to grow is not to eliminate defense, but to become aware of it. To say, I see what I'm doing, and maybe I don't need to do it anymore. Freud didn't ask us to be perfect. He asked us to be curious. Anna Freud asked us to be kind, to see defense as creativity under pressure. And modern psychology asks us to be awake, to live less reactively, more consciously. So the next time you catch yourself laughing when you should cry, blaming when you should reflect, shutting down when you should open up, don't scold yourself. Just listen. Something inside is trying to protect you. And now you can choose what to do with that truth. Curious minds never stop. Subscribe to keep exploring.